Hey everyone, it's Colin with Eagle Eyes Mystery Productions. Thank you for joining me and welcome. Today I'm going to be doing the third part of the Empire Stormtroopers tutorial for Star Wars Legion. This is a free view on Patreon, so please share it around. Today we're going to be finishing up the model by doing the oil wash, and this is where we're really going to get a lot of definition on those panels and grime it up a little bit, but not too much. We just want to get that definition on the panels efficiently and effectively, and finish off the model. After that, it's just basing of your choice. So today I'm going to show how to make an oil wash and also how to apply it, how to remove the excess, and get a nice finished product. So, because oils are very messy, I'm going to go ahead and put a glove on. So before we do the oil wash, I gave the model, I finished painting and highlighting it, doing some white little edge highlighting, and just getting it really to a finished painted state. And then now, instead of going in with an acrylic wash and doing all the recesses, we're going to use an oil wash. So I gave it a nice coat of gloss varnish. I use Liquitex gloss through the airbrush. Works great. You can use whatever gloss varnish, doesn't matter, as long as it works. But so we give it a nice healthy coat of gloss varnish. You can see how shiny it is. We're going to do the oil wash and then finish with a matte varnish. So when it comes to making an oil wash, you're going to need, I use Winsor & Newton, and it's Artist White Spirit. White Spirit and Mineral Spirit are not the same thing. Mineral spirits are different. They behave differently. They have longer working times. I use White Spirit because of short working time, and it behaves how I want it to. Also, some oil paints. These are kind of mid-level, mid-range oil paints, which are good. You don't need the top of the line oil paints, but don't get the super cheap ones either. You want to get ones that are decent, and these are decent. I think these were like $7. So these will last forever. I've had these for years, and I oil wash a lot. So today, since we want a really dark oil wash to give that really stark panel lining look that you get with Stormtroopers, we're going to be using black and then raw umber, which is an incredibly dark brown. We don't want to use pure black because it's just too black, really. It's not interesting. It's just black. But we want to use a very dark brown. So, first things first, I'm going to get my little salsa container here. And we're just going to get a little bit of white spirit. That's probably too much for our purposes today. But just get a little bit of white spirit in there. And then we're going to start with the raw umber and a very trashed synthetic brush. This is my oil mixing brush. I like that it's frayed out because you'll see how much we have to mix this to get the oil paint to fully get dispersed throughout the white spirit, to get fully mixed in to the white spirit. And you can see those little chunks down there. We're going to work those with the brush and just mix. We want to get all this oil wash evenly mixed. We don't want any chunks or anything in there. And you can see that's way too thin, right? That is not going to work. That is way too thin. But before we go about adding more of that, we're going to add some black. And we really just a tiny bit of black, because black is going to completely take over whatever you add it to. So this is, less than a pencil eraser's worth of black oil paint. And that's going to turn this very dark very quickly. And it's going to look almost black, but it's not. It is still too thin, so we're going to add a little bit more of that umber. And you can see there especially, it's not black, it's still brown. It's just very, very, very dark brown, and that's perfect because really it's going to look almost black, but it's just more interesting visually. It's a lot less jarring to have it be a very, very dark brown versus just a straight black. You would not want to do this with just black. So that's perfect. That's the consistency that we want there, where it's still saturated, it's still opaque, but it's not very thick. This is still very, very, very watery. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. And so we can put these away. Should we get the cap on there? There we go. And then we're going to get a different synthetic brush. This one kind of still has, some shape to it, because we don't want to do necessarily an overall wash on the model. We do want to try and target it a little bit. That being said, the reason we did the gloss varnish is so that this will wick into the recesses. And you'll see once we start applying this, we're going to use capillary action. We're just going to hit that edge real quick, and you can see how it defined that whole leg panel. And the reason to use oils and to use the gloss varnish is when you see where the oil is up on that trim piece, we don't want the oil up there, but we're going to leave it there for now. We don't want the oil up there in the final paint job. We want it up there now because we're applying this oil wash, but when the model's finished, we don't want there to be a bunch of extra oils lying around, like all this kind of water marking and stuff around here. We don't want in the final result. So we're going to end up taking that, we're going to end up removing that using the Q-tip in the next step. But you can see how nicely that flows around all these, oops, that's a little too much there. How nicely this flows around all these crevices, and that's because of the gloss varnish that we applied. So we'll get the arm here. And the nice thing about this is you don't have to be too careful. Again, you don't want to do just an overall wash, but you don't have to get in there with a super small brush and keep yourself from getting any paint anywhere you don't want it, like you would with an acrylic wash. Because the benefit to using oils is that we can remove the paint that we don't want to be on the model. So that's a huge advantage. And you'll see just how quick this is. So get the hands, these little details up here on the armor, and then pretty much an overall wash on the helmet, because there are a lot of little details in there that we want to make sure get picked out. And then just kind of look it over, make sure we didn't really miss anything. Add a little bit more there. Excuse me. So just making sure that we got all the little areas that we wanted to get, and that there's enough in those recesses that it's going to give us a nice line when it comes time to take it off. So just going through, and that is good. Now what we're going to do, because this is, excuse me, I want to keep this tutorial somewhat brief. I'm going to get out my heat gun and I'm going to dry the oil paint. Usually when I'm doing this technique, I'm doing it on a group of models. And so by the time, hang on. One thing that I like about oil washing is when I'm batch painting with the white spirits, it's usually dry in about 10-15 minutes. So we just used a heat gun to kind of speed up the process. I don't normally do that. It's not necessary. So as part of this tutorial, you can take it or leave it. But if you need to do an oil wash in a pinch, a heat gun or a hair dryer is pretty handy to have. So I'm just going to take the cap of the white spirit bottle, drop a little white spirit in there, and then use our super technical oil paint removal tool, which is a Q-tip. So we'll soak it in white spirit, and then this is where the magic happens. And we're not pressing hard at all because this will rub off, primer and paint if you're not careful. And that's obviously the last thing that we want, is to ruin our paint job. So here, now you can see there's a little flaw in the plastic there, so we do want to make sure to get that out. Same like right there on the ankle. You can see, let's get this closer. There we go. So you can see on the ankle, that's a flaw in the plastic. That's not an intentional. So we're going to spend a little bit more time trying to get that sorted out down there. It's not all going to come out, and that's okay. But we got the majority of it. Again, soak it in white spirit. And you can see it doesn't mar, even though we're doing this over white, it doesn't mar that surface. It doesn't stain the paint underneath. It just takes the oil wash off of the high areas and leaves it in the recesses and gives a really nice pin wash shading without having to spend all day getting in there with a brush and just being super, super careful. So I'll wipe that off. That's kind of a hard to reach place in there, but that's okay. And we really want to concentrate on getting those legs cleaned up, getting the arms cleaned up, and getting the helmet cleaned up. Realize that's like a majority of the model, but we really don't want to lose the overall white armor on the model. And those are the areas that are going to draw the eye. So we really want to make sure that we clean those up well, but that we leave enough to shade those areas. And you can see the helmet is still pure white, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. That is exactly what we want with that effect, is to keep everything white. And for those hard to reach places, you can always get an old brush, get that dipped in white spirit, and take away. And you can see it's just cleaning up that chest area. Perfect. Get in here, get kind of the cheeks I wasn't able to get. Maybe work on that flaw a little more now that we have a bit finer tool. And forgot to get the front of that leg, so I'll just get that now. Now, the thing about using a brush is you're really just moving around the oils. You're not so much picking it up, which is what the Q-tip is really good for, is actually picking the oil paint up off the model and carrying it off the model. A brush is good for kind of getting those hard to reach places, but you can see there we're actually taking the paint off the model with the Q-tip. All right, and we're done. I mean, that was, what, 15 minutes with full explanation and making the wash. So that is pretty efficient, and it gives you a really clean result. It's a little gritty, it's a little grimy, but, you know, in my opinion, it should be in and around the joints and stuff. You know, I like them to look a little more weathered, but you could see that the armor is still pure white. The helmet, everything still has that really nice white finish to it. It's just been pin washed, and all those details are coming out. All the little armor segments and everything are very well defined. So super happy with that. Now that that's done, all that's left to do is to matte varnish and throw it on a base, and you're done. So I use Vallejo acrylic matte through the airbrush for my matte varnish. I love it. Vallejo acrylic matte. And just give a nice dusting. Don't need too much. And this will seal the oils. You won't be able to work with this after you do the varnish. That's going to seal everything in there. It's not going to come off while you're gaming or anything like that. This thing will be 100% ready to go. There we have it. Empire Stormtrooper for Star Wars Legion. And that looks clean, and it's a very quick, very, very efficient process to finish off these models. To basically do a bunch of airbrushing, a little bit of detailing, and of course these really lend themselves to that kind of minimalist palette. They're mostly black and white. A little bit of white highlighting, a little bit of black highlighting, and the oil wash. And this is a very clean, very serviceable looking Stormtrooper. I think it looks really good. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you want to check out the wider Patreon, it's only $6 a month for full access to all giveaways and tutorial videos. I will be doing a tutorial video on a Bandai AT-ST, and I will be giving that away after I finish that tutorial. I'll be going over weathering and things like that. So panel modulation, airbrush highlights, all that good stuff. So that's going to be a really cool one. I'm looking forward to that. And you know, if you want to check that out, that's going to be on the Patreon, and that giveaway will also be on the Patreon. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Again, this is free to view on the Patreon, so share it around, send it to friends. You know, be happy to answer any questions they have. Just shoot me a message or leave a comment. So thank you again. I love painting these Legion models, and expect more content to come in the future. So thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.